Welcome to the Do Life Well podcast. Join your host, Gavin Merwin, and his guests as they explore the nature of doing life well. Now, let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of the Do Life Well podcast. I'm your host, Gavin Merwin. Today I am joined by Terry Moore, who, among many things, is the CEO of the YOSS Platform, involved with a lot of great organizations, Burn Culture Church and Community Christian Academy, and a lot of other things, and is a very special person in my life. And going into the Christmas season, very excited to today talk about living a generous life and why that's important. An important aspect of doing life well. And so, ready to jump in. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, Gavin, it's great to be here. I'd like to really start by really just complimenting you and just telling you that, everybody doesn't possess the giftings that you possess. And if I remember right, I think you've turned 30 in the last couple of weeks. But, to be as far along in life as you are at 30, and probably one of the attributes that you have that is so admirable is the ability to really recognize what's going on around you and to make adjustments in your life and with your family and just how you do life, which makes you do life well, which again, just a byproduct of even this podcast. So just wanted to take a minute and just tell your listeners what an amazing person you are, an amazing dad, amazing husband, amazing leader, and just to take the time to put something out that can benefit other people's lives is really, really special for a person your age, and really just recognizing the impact that you have on people's life is really unique, and just an honor to be in your life. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to be a part of this today, and look forward to sharing on generosity and how that's impacted mine in your life.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, for sure. Kind of getting started, I thought it'd be cool to give you some space to kind of share some of your story, your background, and, I can do the same and just kind of set the stage for why we live a generous life.
Absolutely. Growing up, I would say we were a middle to lower, middle income, middle class family, parents divorced the summer between the 7th and 8th grade, and really kind of raised myself after that. It was mom went to work at night and really just had to figure it out. And looking back now, you know that dad being in Texas, mom doing the best that she could to provide for us. And there was just a lot of insecurities. There was a lot of things that you just know now at 57 that were behaviors that I manifested due to insecurities, whether it was financial insecurities, stability in the home, just so many areas in our life that we can look back and realize, and hopefully do something in other people's lives to prevent them, be a part of their life in a way that prevents them from manifesting those same characteristics and behaviors that I manifested. And then being a part of your life, even seeing some of those in your life. But it's just insecurities, man. And you just realize that most behavior is a byproduct of something that has happened to us in our life, whether it be good or bad. And it causes us to act out in certain ways. And so, as my career I started in the insurance industry in 1986, and it was a very archaic way of being in the insurance industry. It was running a debit. It was collecting insurance premiums from very low socioeconomic homes, and then growing from that into a more what they call a BMU, a better market unit, where everything was on bank draft. And I mean, we're talking 1986.
Sure,
yeah. Decades, right?
Yeah.
So, very, very, very different way of doing things than we do them today. And so, even going through times when during that, going from location to location, doing business with people, is my car going to crank when I get back in the car? Do I have money to eat lunch? Just is the rent going to get paid?
Yeah.
Where am I going to live? So at pretty much at 17, 18, and this, but maybe a lot of your listeners know, I'm a high school dropout. So with 2 weeks left in my senior year, they said, you've got to go back to summer school again. So it would have been like the second or third time. And I'm like, yeah, I'm over this. So, back then, at that stage of life, you think you know a lot and you know nothing, absolutely nothing. And so I made that terrible decision. But as with so many things, God fills all the holes, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was, it's been this journey that God has taken me on and just helped me better understand why I'm who I am today and the things that impacted me, and really just trying to help young men, obviously young women too, but young men. And what we find out too is that maturity has absolutely nothing to do with age.
Yeah, sure.
You can be 60, 70 and be immature.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've come to learn is that, you can live without passion and go through life and leave no footprints.
Yeah.
And man, I just want to leave footprints.
Yeah.
I want you guys as young men that are a part of my life to say, wow, that Terry did impacted me. And to me, that's a footprint.
Yeah.
So I just want to go through this life and leave footprints. And even from the giving perspective and generosity perspective, so Genesis 8, it says, as long as the earth endures, there will be seed time and harvest time, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease.
Yeah.
It says it will never cease. So what does that tell us? That if we put seed in the ground, and what does that mean? That can mean our time.
Yeah.
That can mean certainly finances, just kindness, so many areas that we can put seed in the ground. So as long as there's summer and winter, spring and fall, there will be seed time and harvest time. And I think that we can overlook that and not be mindful of the fact that we need to put seed in the ground.
Yeah.
And so I think today I am living a life that is a benefit of the seed that I put in the ground 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm reaping the benefits of that. And just a brief story I read the other day. Baker Mayfield, the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe he was the quarterback at Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. He's been in the NFL several years. I think he was with the Cleveland Browns for a while. But anyway, so he is currently the quarterback at Tampa Bay. So he and his wife had heard the story about this high school football team that it basically was not going to have a season because they didn't have the equipment that they needed. And it was somewhere in Florida. And so they made a decision to donate $7,800. And that $7,800 got them the equipment that they needed to have a football season. And so the previous year, and again, I'm pretty close, but I think they went like 1-8, you know. And I think it was this year that they went 10-3 and won a state championship.
Wow.
So, you know, $7,800 from a NFL quarterback changed the lives and the trajectory of this football team that he probably doesn't even know these kids.
Sure.
He's probably never had any contact with them, but just his generosity changed could have potentially, and I think it probably did, change the trajectory in 1 year. In 1 year, you go from 1-8 to 10-3, winning a state championship because of $7,800.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there was good leadership, there was good coaching, but you think about the impact of generosity.
Yeah.
You think about how people being generous and willing to not think less of themselves, but think of themselves less.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we talk about around here is we lead like servants and we serve like kings.
Yeah.
So we lead like servants and we serve like kings. And what does that mean? I mean, it just means that you have the heart of a servant.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you walk around with your head down and, you know, I'm just a worm.
Yeah.
And, you know, no, that's not the case. You're a king's kid, and you're a king's kid, and you have access to unlimited resources in order to what? Build your own kingdom? No, to serve those around you well.
Yeah.
And so when you understand why you have what you have, it's you know, the premise or the image and the idea of a king, which really actually, it's funny, it kind of nauseates me. The king and queen of England and all of the pomp and circumstance and hype that goes around, you know, the king and queen of England, but it's all based on being born with the right bloodline.
Yeah.
You know, and for the guys that listen to this, you know, if you're in the Lucky Sperm Club, you know,
that's right.
You get to be
exactly.
a king's kid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just it really segregates people, and it puts these certain select groups of people into this column that they're idolized and they're special and they're so different. And, you know, and I hope it's okay to talk about Jesus, and I know it is, and, you know, and so, you know, I don't want to make it all spiritual because I know we're talking about generosity, but how can you talk about generosity without the spiritual aspect of it? So anyway, you know, it's being a king's kid, man. Once you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and I don't know, I'm not going to get into this, but I don't know that we're not king's kid because we're all made in his image from day one. I think it's just coming into the understanding of who you are.
Sure.
But once you begin to enter into the kingdom through the blood of Christ and you realize, you know, man, yeah, I may come in as a servant, but I go from a servant to, as God called Abraham, a friend. And then you go from the understanding, because you always were all of these, from being a friend to being a son or a daughter.
Yeah.
But you never quit being a servant.
Sure.
And you never quit being a friend. But you grow into the understanding of sonship.
Yeah.
And as you become a son, you realize that I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to leave footprints. And, you know, philanthropy and giving is how, you know, I mean, you've been a part of my life for, 20 or more years, you know. You're 30 now, and we would go to the ramp in Hamilton, Alabama, and we would take a lot of kids with us, and I believe we impacted their lives, and that was 20 years ago. I mean, however long, 15, 20 years, and we did it in such a way nobody had to pay a dime.
Yeah.
We took care of hotel rooms. So this is something we've done for years,
yeah.
and it's just really understanding, because of my past growing up, I couldn't do things that other kids did. And it's like, well, let's go out to eat. Well, I can't go because I don't have the money. And you never want to say that I'm broke, because it's embarrassing.
Yeah, sure.
But the truth of it is, if you take that inhibition away from people and you say, hey, let's go to lunch and I'm paid, I'm buying, and you don't make it weird, and it's just like, hey, I'm going. Because once people realize that there are opportunities out there, that they're not constrained or confined by finances, it's amazing how their perspective changes.
Yeah.
So kind of going back to the idea that, the King and Queen of England and all that there's only, a select few. And I just believe that the kingdom of God is broad, and it includes everybody. And so what we have tried to do, even organizationally, and through our lives, through your life. I mean, you've lived this. You've had a life of generosity as well, through the Boys and Girls Club, through all the different things that you're a part of as well. But you just realize that I think people just have such a narrow perspective because of what the world has told them that they believe through social media, through maybe even their parents growing up, that there's these limitations that we have. And it's only for a select few, and I just don't believe that. I think that if we can, through generosity, show people that the kingdom of God is vast, and there's hope, and there are people out there that are willing to help you, and even to how, we have grown the business down through the years. It started out initially financial services, providing retirement and financial planning, and then, the progression into the benefits, the dental division, short term, all those things that we do now. And then from there, just recognizing the opportunity to get into the software business and being willing to take risks and take profits and revenue and resources and intellectual property, like yourself and Hunter and other people, and transition that intellectual property to a whole nother venture, if you will. There's just a lot of uncertainty. I mean, I certainly have never been in the software business. Obviously you're very techie, but not like you ever coded anything,
Right.
So it was just an idea, and I think this is a very true and powerful statement, that people with vision come alongside and help people with dreams. So, you have people tell you, you're visionary, you're this, you're that. I don't know, man. I think everybody's got, as Dan Sullivan would say, unique abilities.
Sure.
And being able to see 30,000 foot, take a perspective, and be willing to, as we've talked about before, push the chips in one more time. And I think we're going to do that again with other parts of the software, new platforms and things that you're already working on that are so exciting. But I don't think we're unique to the fact that we have dreams.
Yeah.
And somebody with vision has got to be willing to help support and finance those dreams.
Yeah.
And so, so it's just an amazing journey, and the Lord has been so gracious to us, so gracious. I've had an opportunity to participate in Community Christian Academy for 25 years, and just young people, helping them get into an environment where it's not about whether you wear Nikes or you wear the right jeans or the right clothes, and they get to hear the gospel, and they're in an environment that's nurturing. And everybody's got a different opinion. Some people say, well, you're coddling kids, that kind of thing. But one of the things that I've kind of come to believe is, when you get mine in your age, you get to pick who your friends are.
Sure.
You kind of get to, if I want to go to lunch with you, we'll go to lunch. If I don't want to go to lunch with you, I don't go to lunch with you. But when you're like in 5th grade, you're put in an environment where if you don't assimilate well, you're ostracized, and you're an outcast. And so you gravitate towards those people, then they get bitter because they don't fit, they don't think, and they end up being a school shooter or going down a path of drugs or alcohol. I think some of that is my past too, because of not having the finances, the wherewithal to be able to wear certain clothes and do certain things. And you reflect back, one of the first suits that I wore, I had a guy tell me, man, you've got a thread right here, but I was afraid to pull it because I thought the whole suit might unravel and come off of you. Mm-hmm. And you're like, that's really embarrassing, that you thought my suit was that cheap.
Sure.
And so, I've taken you guys, let's go get really nice suits, And I don't know that that's not a byproduct of some of that, because I've never wanted you guys to experience that type of embarrassment, and people don't mean it. They don't, it's not intentional. They just don't know any better.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things we talk so much about around here is situational awareness. And so you see young people, you see them, they don't have the money, their family doesn't, to come to CCA, but we sponsor them, we give them an opportunity, and hopefully they participate in some of that, because you want them to have skin in the game.
Yeah, sure.
You want maybe their family to pay half or something so that they value what's being given them. Yeah. But you can get them in that environment, and I've just seen lives radically changed through generosity. Yeah. And so and that's what we do, and we're gonna, as long as the good Lord lets us, we're gonna continue to be generous. We're gonna continue to give. There's dreams that we have about maybe some type of a foster program that we can be a part of one day. They're big dreams, man. And we know that we should all have some sort of massive transformative purpose, as we call it, an MTP. And really that's a very biblical principle, Gavin, because if it's something you can do on your own and you don't need God, it's probably not of God, and it's probably not big enough.
Sure.
If you can do it on your own. And so we dream big around here. And we know that we're King's kids, and we are in the family of the God, the only true and living God, who left heaven and came to rescue us. We don't go to him, he came to us, kind of first love. He first loved us, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of like you have these young daughters now, and it's coming up around Christmas time, and we're a month and a half or 2 out, or whatever that is, when this podcast goes out. So Emma Claire has no money. you know. But you'll have presents around the tree, and those presents will have daddy on them.
Yeah.
And they will be a byproduct of you first loved her. You will give money to Jess. Jess will take her shopping.
Yeah.
And she'll say, look what we bought you, Daddy.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, you bought that with my money.
Yeah,
that's
right.
ours.
Right.
You know?
That's
But
right.
isn't that so cool?
Yeah.
Isn't that how Pops did us,
Yeah.
how Dad does us?
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
man, I first loved you.
Yeah.
I gave you love so you could give love back. So yeah, man, that's that's just kind of how we live our lives around here. And we're renovating another building, and who knows what, you know, God will use that for. We're going through John Tanner and Stanton and some of these other guys that have got these connections, and it's intriguing, man. You know, we look at Jordan Rowe, and you know, a local guy from Adel, Georgia,
Yeah.
that is in Nashville, Tennessee, and through an invitation that he extended for some of us to go up, specifically invited Stanton up to speak, and then now John Tanner's plugged in. Now we're all plugged in, and you know, and it's the cool thing about generosity, because it's not just generosity of finances; it's generosity in relationships.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, oh, those are my relationships, Gavin, and you can't participate.
Yeah.
And that's really, to me, a byproduct of insecurity, and we all have some of that,
Sure.
you know. But we should be working on that every day. But isn't it cool? Hey, man, these are relationships that I didn't have prior to that you can have, and there's some of those guys that are going to relate to you better than they do to me, and you're going to be able to change their lives through the principles that we're all applying to our daily lives. So yeah, it's just, man, if you will allow the Lord to take you on this thing called life, you know, this journey called life, and realize that there's no destination, because here's what we know, is that, oh, well, if I get $100 million, or if I get 10 million, or maybe 200 million, then that's going to bring satisfaction to me. And here's what we know is that we hear time and time again, because of the circles that we run in, the podcasts we listen to, the people the books we read, that people sell, you know, entrepreneurs sell their business for $300 million, and 60 days they're bored.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfulfilled.
Yeah. And isn't that so true?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we know that's so true, because things and money don't fulfill us.
Yeah.
But relationships and people and...
Well, I think the word footprint does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like leaving footprints on people is what's fulfilling.
Isn't it though? Yeah. And that's what it's all about. So, you know, and hey, here's the beautiful thing, and we talk about this a lot, is community.
Yeah.
And living in community, because, I mean, I can have times and seasons and days and maybe weeks or months where I'm not applying those principles. But if you're in community, somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, come, let's go to lunch, or let's sit down and talk. You're a little out of sorts.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on with you? And they're going to help, like, recalibrate you, if that makes sense.
100%.
And so, you know, I love that aspect of what we do, as just not only a company, but just as a group of men that we surround ourselves with. And, you know, things that are in the dark will hold you captive, but once you put them in the light, they can no longer hold you captive. They can no longer keep you from being everything you're called to be. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just exposing stuff. And so we do that a lot with each other. We're just like, yeah, man, I'm really not doing well in this area. I'm not doing well in that area. We don't judge each other. We're just like, yeah, man, I hear you. How can I help you?
Yeah.
And let's do better next time.
Yeah. Well, and I think being generous helps with that too. I mean, like practically speaking, just like, again, this time of year when you're doing community service and you're giving to people, and it just softens your heart, you know, in a lot of ways. And we can get busy and going through the routines of life and the day ins and the day outs. And I think, again, like you said, living a footprint. We were talking about a situation earlier in the week, guy passed away, and you're like, I told you, hey, whether it's I lived to 120 or I lived to age 30, it's a short time regardless. And so what are we doing every day that really matters? And obviously we got to go to work and we got to pay bills, we got to do the dishes and all this stuff. But I think just practically living a generous life, being open to give, being open to how you can serve others, being open to community service. I mean, we try practically every year. This will be Collins's second Christmas, but first time probably like beginning to understand this. Emma Claire for sure, doing like community service with them, like letting them participate, whether it's Toys for Kids or something about Austin. It's just small stuff. Like I just want to put into my children that it's important to serve others. Like we live a blessed and fortunate life, and
100%.
everybody doesn't have that, and it's good for us to be around, you know, people who have needs and meeting those needs, and obviously we have needs that people meet for us, you know. But it's just, I don't know, again, I think it's just a good time of year to just apply those principles.
Absolutely. And you just do an amazing job of that. And the thought that comes to mind is the principle of teach, we model it, and then we empower people.
Yeah.
So we teach, we model, and we empower.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It means exactly what you're doing with your kids.
Yeah.
You're teaching them, then you're modeling it for them. Hey, we're generous people. We're a generous family. Well, what does that mean, Mom and Dad? Well, we're going to go model it for you, you know, and we're going to show you what that means.
Yeah.
And then we're going to empower you to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and I think that's empowering for everybody too, from the perspective of it doesn't matter how big or small it is. Meaning like everybody can participate in this regardless of their situation themselves, you know. I mean, you can be generous and have nothing to give. You know what I mean? Financially, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Like it's just it's a mindset, and it's something that we all need to model, and I think it unlocks things in our hearts that we can't otherwise get if we're not generous.
Absolutely. You know, and when you allow your children inside of your heart and inside of your life and what you do every day in a generous way of living, here's what we know is that it's a very layered approach. It's over a period of time, they see something modeled before them, and it really gets deep inside of them because they see the value, they see the fruits of that. And, you know, one of the things that you come to realize, and you know, I try to stay away from the vernacular or the term I've learned. Yeah, no, I've not learned anything.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Sure.
Because here's what we know: there's another layer of or level of learning.
Sure.
Right? I mean, there's just no such thing as I've learned that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'll show you.
You've never mastered.
You've never
mastered it.
Absolutely, because we all have the human aspect of our lives that tomorrow we can revert back to some of our old habits.
Sure.
But one of the principles of generosity is yesterday's sacrifice is today's convenience. Sacrifice proves I'm alive. Sacrifice proves I'm thinking about the next generation. So when you think about sacrifice, the sacrifice of today the sacrifice of today is convenience, but yesterday it was a challenge for me.
Yeah.
So yesterday's sacrifice is today's convenience. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the things that were really they were easy for you a year ago. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like it's like, or these things were a sacrifice a year ago. Today they're easy for you. So what does that mean? We have to keep stretching.
Yeah.
We have to keep improving the way that we live our life and our generosity. Because what was a sacrifice yesterday, we don't even think anything about it today.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, that's right.
So what does that tell us? There's just another level.
Yeah.
And we know that even from like church aspect, I mean, so yesterday, just like we joke in the Christian community, like there's bread holders, your hands are kind of out in front of you.
Sure.
And at some point, you get them straight up and
Sure.
you're I'm full surrender,
Sure.
So maybe at one point it was a sacrifice to
Sure.
hold the bread,
Sure.
So today it's not, So, and what moves you, and if it doesn't move you, and if it doesn't stretch you, then it's not a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so we know that there's this comfort level, and we all love comfort, don't we?
Yeah.
We all love comfort. And so when you think about giving and being generous, it's like, oh yeah, I'm good with speaking to that person or doing this or doing that. Oh, and then when you get that prompt, that feeling, well, how about you do this? Oh, now that's out of my comfort zone right there.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to stretch you. And there's a whole nother availability of understanding, of generosity, if you will stretch,
Yeah. Well, I mean, talk about sowing and reaping, because we had that down.
Yes.
And it's not a manipulation or twisting of God's arm, but it's a fundamental universal principle.
Exactly. No, and tithing, people ask the question, well, do I tithe off of the gross or the net?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you want?
Yeah.
I mean, that's up to you, really. And isn't it interesting how we really, and I think it goes back to the garden. There's two trees. You get the choice.
Yeah.
Things are choices.
Yeah, that's right.
You and I have talked about before, people think that we somehow just arrived where we're at.
Yeah.
No, life is a summation of choices we make. Yeah. And there's times when you're going to have a choice to do certain things or not do certain things that can potentially change the trajectory of your life. And so I think tithing is one of those things, people can be very dogmatic. I personally think it's very important because it's a heart issue. It's a trust issue. It's not as you said earlier, we're not twisting God's arm. We're not manipulating him. It's trust, man. I mean, by the time you pay tithes and taxes and whatever, I mean, you're left with about 40% of your income.
Sure.
And you're like, how can I live on 40%? Well, I mean, it's God, man. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And it's just the kingdom and it's how it works. And so as we walk through this life, you ask questions, do I tithe off of the gross or the net? Well, start somewhere, and then have an open heart to, I feel a nudge. I need to bump that. I need to do this. I need to make this adjustment in my life. And I was talking with a young man the other day, and I happen to know his general income, and he's tithing double what his gross revenue is, his gross check. He's doubling that. And for some people, and I even heard somebody say, well, what's he going to do when he runs out of money? Yeah, I don't even know why we think that way.
Sure.
I mean, he's honoring God. Now, here's what I'm not saying to all of your listeners is run out and do that. Because what you'll quickly find out is that in and of itself could be manipulation. You think, oh, I can do what he did and get what I want. No. It's so interesting the way it's kind of like leaven. The Word of God and the Bible talks a lot about leaven. Leaven can be a good thing and a bad thing. But the way these principles work in our life is like leaven.
Yeah.
They grow. And over time, you grow into certain things that become who you are.
Yeah.
I can't be you, and you can't be me.
Right.
And so, but I can take principles that you apply to your life, and I can apply those to my life. And you may be, a decade into applying that principle and it works for you. I take it and I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that. And it crashes and burns for me.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work for me, because it's not in me, and it hasn't risen in me like leaven.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I think being careful of how we communicate to people, oh, well, just do this and you'll be good. Be generous.
Yeah.
That's good, but this stuff's got to grow inside of you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
right.
And so, and it's like so many things. Even I think if we take life, we do not expect Collins to be where Emma Claire is.
Right.
And we're at this stage of Emma Claire's life. We're not going to go buy her a new car.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not ready yet.
That's right.
And, so understanding that's life, man.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. And just being comfortable and being at peace with that. And that can be to that topic as a little rabbit trail, just a minute, that can be a tough thing to do. And even especially as men, because we want to be further along than we are.
Yeah.
I know it's funny. I kind of can watch you guys, and it's like I'm turning 30, and that was kind of when Jesus started his ministry, and I'm finally 30, and you're like, yeah, it's good, but there's a lot of life to live.
Yeah.
And milestones are important in our life, and looking back, and you and I talk a lot about the gap and the gain.
Yeah.
And looking back and living in the gain, not in the gap. My gosh, what have you done, Gavin, in the last 5 years, in the last 7 years, in the last 10 years? I think you sometime last year, had your 10th anniversary of being with the company. I mean, you started here out of high school, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been like it for you. I remember riding down the road, and we had just passed the Varsity restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia. So funny, I just remember that. And we just passed the Varsity in Atlanta, all these big buildings on both sides. I think Atlantic Station is over there on your left. And I just remember it's like there's the 75-85 split right there. And I just remember it's like you said, I'm going to work with you one day. And I'm like, man, you're like a sophomore in high school. Are you kidding me, man? Go do your thing. But because of your willingness to allow the leaven to operate in your life, you have become the man you are today, which is honorable and respectful and mindful and a great husband and a great father and a great leader in all the things that you've allowed the leaven to work in you. And you made the statement, I did not know you were going to listen to this particular podcast of a gentleman we listen to a lot. I send you a lot of stuff, it probably drive you crazy. But I didn't send you this one, I don't think. But you listened to it either way, and you observed a comment that was made that, people that have a natural acumen and gifting and talent towards certain things probably are going to have to, the word sacrifice, death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, to areas in their life where they could potentially be prideful because they're naturally good at this. And so your awareness to, oh, wow, that could apply to me, that's like critical to this whole thing that we're talking about when it comes to generosity and living life, and and the fact that you grew up in a challenging household just like I did, which could have the opposite effect and make us be tight and stingy and hold on and fearful, because we didn't have certain things growing up. I can remember I thought cheese dip was ketchup, I get me a little ketchup and melt me some cheese in it, some shredded cheese. And I didn't know it was Velveeta and Rotel. You know what I mean? So, those experiences can drive you to being very tight and fearful that we're not going to have enough. And so for you to allow those things to be worked out of your life, and for you to grow in the realization that man, I've got these things in my life that I just need to be mindful of, because you are gifted, you are talented, you do have an incredible acumen for leadership and managing people and structure and even technology, and you grasp things really quickly. And it's the old saying that your challenges in your life can many times exist in the shadow of your strengths. So inside of your strengths and in that shadow of the strength can lie a real challenge for you, if you don't recognize it. So I think as we go on this journey of life, we can say, what causes me to want to hold on too tightly and not be generous? And I have those things in my life even now. Situations come up, this happens, that happens. Oh, it's Christmas time. It's like every bill under the sun comes due. It seems like taxes, insurance. I had somebody text me and they said, hey, I'm going to put an $8,000 bill in to be paid. We probably want to pay it by the year this year. Absolutely. And the whole time I'm having heart palpitations, and you're like, hey, we're renovating this building. We got this going on. We got that going on. You call me. Hey, if we do this year, they're sending us a deal. We can save $3,000 a year, but we got to pay it by the year. Well, then we've got another division of the company that does the same thing. So quickly 6 turns into 12. So now that's 12,000. Right? And so if you're not careful, all of that can paralyze you, and you can begin to withhold. So and so we're all growing and learning how to live this life, and none of that changes the fact that we were talking earlier with a friend, and we look at our bills, we make sure that they're accurate, we check our accounts to make sure that this day and time especially, nobody's in our account taking money from us illegally. So it doesn't mean we're not good stewards. Maybe you want to touch that briefly, but I think stewardship is a massive part of this. I think good stewardship is important, and being aware of.
Well, and I think being generous is a way of being a good steward.
Absolutely.
Because it's like you said, I think the design is for us to leave a footprint on people. It's not all about us, and we can benefit in the process. I don't think he's got a problem with that, but I think resources come to us so we can get them to people around us, and a part of good stewardship is being generous.
Absolutely, yeah. Heard this definition of prosperity. It's defined by what we give away rather than what we have. So, prosperity is defined by what we give, not what we have. I think it's a beautiful way of looking at it. So I think that in this journey of life that we go on, we model generosity, we empower, and sometimes you'll do things for different people in your life, and they don't seem appreciative. I think even yesterday we had a young man come in the office, and if I remember right, you were trying to teach him stewardship back, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I remember you were frustrated.
Sure.
You're like, man, this guy gets this money and he just blows it, and he just won't steward it well, and he spends it, and then he calls me and he wants me to figure it out for him. I'm not figuring it out, that kind of thing. Yeah. And he pops back up, and really, I'm literally walking across the street.
Yeah.
And, hey, Mr. Terry, hey, buddy, how you doing?
Yeah.
So, and it was funny because one of the statements, because I asked him, I said, how are you doing? And he said, you know what, I'm really learning that I can make money, but I need to save some of it. I'm spending it all.
Sure.
And I'm learning, but now, he's married, he has a home. Yeah. Isn't that interesting how just living life can change your perspective?
Sure.
And so, and I think for you, just like me and other people, not letting that one event where this person did not appear to be taking your advice, and even being frustrated with the fact that they weren't being frugal and they weren't in a place where they could afford nice things, and they were just launching their career, if you will, and you were actually a big part of helping them launch their career, and you wanted to see them be able to be successful and go to the next level, and they weren't being mindful of their spending, and you could have just said, man, to heck with you, I'm done with you, but even he comes in, big hugs, and his life is on track now.
Yeah,
and you played a big role in that and played a big part of that. So people may not always respond the way we want them to respond at first about generosity or different areas of life, but we don't write them off. Yeah. Just knowing that you're going to have people that God puts in your life on this journey, and that they're not going to immediately understand the principles that you're trying to teach them. And again, you were trying to help him start his career and get on a path that he could be successful. You were probably, just think about the way that what you were thinking at a probably 24, 25-year-old man, and you were trying to teach, fiscal responsibility. Sure. And those kind of things, just the maturity level that you have. And you were trying to teach that even at that age to this man that's close to your age, and he didn't appear to be grasping it and really applying any of it. And he shows back up in our life, and he lives in another state now, and he shows back up in our life yesterday, and you guys, big hug. His life is different now, and he's applying those principles now.
Sure.
Because he's having to.
Yeah. Sure.
Isn't it interesting how life works? And he's probably, reflecting back on the things you were sharing with him, but he was just telling me, yeah, I'm having to do this, I'm having to do that now. Sure. And even again, he comes into the office, and the team that you've built helped him fix his camera, helped him do some things, showed him some things about, the industry that he's in. Sure. that he didn't know. Sure. So it's just it's the way God is so circular in nature. Yeah. There's just nothing linear with the Lord. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever, but that's his character. That his character is the same yesterday, today, and forever. but his methods change, and the way he communicates changes, and the things that he does changes. Why? Because he's not going to let us get him down to a methodology that if we give this amount, we're going to get this. No, sometimes you give and you don't see any fruit. You know? And you're like, well, that must have been bad soil. You know, the churchy thing we do, you know? It's like, no, it wasn't bad soil. You gave because you felt prompted, and you did what you felt prompted to do. And the results are up to him. You know? And so you can't measure the results. And then the next time you give, you will see incredible fruit quickly. And you're like, what happened the last time? That's God. You're not going to figure him out. He is beyond figuring out. We might know a thimbleful. You could put what I know about these topics on the cap of the bottle of water that I'm drinking. And the sooner we come to that understanding, and faith is just, you just have to know, man, I don't understand the way this stuff works. There's no methodology. 1 + 1 in the kingdom does not equal 2. You know? 1 + 1 equals 8 sometimes, you know? But then on the flip side, you have to do the principled stuff in your life during seasons and times. You got to pay your bills on time. You have to do this. You have to do that. And those are things that you have to do. Well, then a month later, he's stretching you to give beyond what you're capable of. And you're like, how does this add up? It doesn't. It doesn't. It's called faith. And so, you know, you and I have had the privilege of going on this faith journey together, and, you know, and just watching time and time and time again. You know, if there's any one thing that you and I have gotten to share in us sharing our lives with each other, is we've gotten to really just observe, almost like a spectator, God do just miraculous things in our life. You know, haven't we?
100%.
And so I just look back and I'm like, how does a high school dropout that, you know, I have to hand you my phone to get you to fix stuff, and, you know, y'all laugh at me, and, you know, how does 2 and 2 make 4 that you have a software company? You know, how does 2 and 2 make 4 that we have men in this company that you lead that are absolutely brilliant, that understand more about artificial intelligence, AI, than people in Silicon Valley, that they really have a incredible grasp of AI, and they're from right here in South Georgia, and they're connected to our firm. Isn't that is insane to me. And just allowing God to do these miracles. And I mean, you hired a guy that was literally like on an IV drip antibiotic from an accident he was in, and his wife and kid comes in, and because we didn't have these boxes that we live in, I mean, you call me and you say, hey, I think I'm gonna hire this guy. And I'm like, well, what are you calling me for? Well, it's just odd. I mean, he's like in a wheelchair on a walker, and he's just had this terrible accident, but I just feel drawn to him, and I think we can be a part of helping his life. And you know, that's what happened. And he's a brilliant guy. I mean, again, knows more about technology and software, and he's just so smart, and, you know, has moved on with his journey, had another job opportunity to work closer to home and not have that hour drive here. And he took advantage of that, and we blessed him. We sent him off. We made sure we paid him for several weeks to make sure the transition was good. And, it was, finishing well, honoring people well. That's generosity too.
Yeah.
But I would say watching your life and the fact that you don't live life in a box and you're willing to let God break your box, and you're willing to let the Lord give you experiences in life that really expand your capacity, has been such an honor and such a privilege to be a part of that, and to watch you grow into who you are today, the generous, kind, giving, but yet at the same time too, so structured and organized, and sometimes getting up at 4 a.m, working with the India team probably for a year and a half, that you had to do that in a very disciplined way. But having that discipline on one hand, and then on the other hand, living a very open life to whatever God has for you, and willing, I would say a massive part of a very, very big part of your success has been being open to knowing I don't have this figured out and I need to apply these principles to my life, and actually not just being a hearer of the word, but being a doer and applying those principles to your life has just allowed you to explode in growth, not only spiritually, but emotionally and financially. Beyond, I would say probably, 95 to, even greater percent of all the men your age at this stage of life. But it's interesting, you've earned every bit of it, and earn is an interesting vernacular, but you have in many respects through what? An open heart, a teachable heart, a willingness to bend, to be flexible, not to be rigid, and you know you can be rigid, and it's like, but hey, I acknowledge that.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And it's one of the things we talk about different people we're around is situational awareness. Knowing I can be that way. It's like, okay, I know I can be that way, so am I being that way, and do I need to change it? So just, man, hey, this has been so much fun for me, just being on the podcast with you and getting to share these principles that really you and I live together. This is not mutually exclusive to me. Thank you for letting me come on. Thank you for letting me share some of the parts of my life with your listeners that you and I share every day. I mean, this is stuff me and you do every day. I mean, it's, we are so blessed, Gavin, so fortunate, so blessed to be able to be a part of something that there's probably not a week, that's an exaggeration. There's maybe not more than 2 to 3 days that go by that we don't have some version of this conversation or something like it. That we live and we actually run the business based on these principles. We've bought cars, we've bought clothes, we've bought furniture, I don't even like that word, we've invested in those things for people. And then we've also known when to say no, because people can take advantage of your generosity. I think the Lord gives you a sensitivity to people and kind of what's going on in their heart. But being able to live generous, live a very open life, and live in a way that you let people in and they see the good, they see the bad, they see the ugly, they see your failures, they see your successes. I think allowing people to see that and letting them inside
Yeah.
of your life, and not saying, oh, you can be a part of this part of my life, but not a part of this part of my life. That's what allows people to grow, and allows them to really know this person is real, and these principles work.
Yeah.
And so, and I've gleaned from you, you've gleaned from me, we glean from each other, we glean from the people around us, and it's just a privilege and an honor to have you in my life, to be a part of what you're doing and a part of your family. Man, you've got an amazing wife, you've got incredible children, you're doing life well, hence the podcast. Doing life well. And it's really, really a privilege to be a part of that.
Yeah, well, it's a privilege to be a part of yours, and I appreciate everything you shared, and hope you guys enjoyed that. And I just encourage everybody to look for ways to be generous, especially this time of year, but always, and just take some of this and apply it. So I appreciate it. Until next time, see you guys later.
Thank you for joining us on the Do Life Well podcast, where we explore topics like fatherhood, business, health, wellness, and so much more. With each episode, we aim to inspire and guide you in embracing the art of doing life well. If you found value in today's conversation, please leave us a review, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time, continue the journey of doing life well.